Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Castle Black Bourbon and Coffee. This is your host Adam Ballesteros on the Bearded Ballesta channel. So everyone's very split, I guess you'd say, when it comes to these 4 episodes in the final season of Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, for these last couple episodes, I have not had the opportunity to get a guest on, busy schedules and whatnot, and haven't been talking to myself, and I don't have any reciprocation. But luckily, this episode, I have two really knowledgeable guests when it comes to the show of Game of Thrones and some of the books. They're actually hosts of another podcast, the Nest Podcast, which I believe is for nerd entertainment sports talk.
You got it.
Yeah. Yep. Brandon and Zach, how are you guys doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for coming on. And like I said, these guys actually feature me on a segment they call what, Got Thoughts? Or is it
Sure.
Send the Raven?
It doesn't matter.
We never
Either.
officially named it. It just kind of was what it was. And
Okay.
we just like having people on to talk about Game of Thrones.
Hell yeah. It's a way to
And-
do it.
And before we go any further, I don't want to insult any of your listeners. You said knowledgeable. That's not us. That
Hey,
is
I
not
consider
us.
you guys knowledgeable.
The only thing that we've predicted right thus far was that Arya and Gendry were going to hook up and that Jaime and Brienne were going to hook up.
That's
Other
why.
than that, we've struck out.
Hey man, I've struck out with you guys, but as far as predictions, yeah, we're not too great at it. But as far as knowing the background and development and all the underlying things of Game of Thrones, I'd say you guys are two great guests to have on this show.
Oh, thanks. That's nice.
So diving into it, like I've said, everybody has been pretty divided. I know you guys and I are in similar, I guess, a similar understanding of not being too pleased, I guess, with this season as far as the way that it has been advertised to the viewers, and it's just kind of taken a turn that I guess I would say shocking, but kind of underwhelming in a way.
Yeah, I think the main problem with what I see from a lot of people anyway is that it appears to be going in the direction of the happy-go-lucky ending. And I
Yep.
think we've all been wanting kind of a twist or something crazy that'll throw us all off. And I trust HBO and I trust the writing behind the show that they're going to deliver something that's absolutely can I cuss on here?
Absolutely, go for it.
It's absolutely fucking mind-blowing. And it's going to destroy all of us in the end. I mean, it's just like Sopranos ended with Tony Soprano just there. Did he die or not? Like it left a cliffhanger. So I could kind of see Game of Thrones doing the same.
I could see that too. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I'm on board with that idea. Episode 3 showed that to me. Like after episode 3 aired and we saw what happened to the Night King, it clicked into my head and I was like, okay, this is how this last season is going. They're not really going to drag us along with these crazy, what if the Night King is Bran and what if this is that? They're just trying to tie loose ends here and they're trying to end a show.
Right.
I'm pretty fearful that it's just going to end in some mundane way and it's not going to be that great for true Game of Thrones fans.
I get that. And something I've had to remind myself repeatedly is I feel like I get too ahead of myself at the end of each episode, and I'm kind of distraught and I'm pissed off at the fact that not many key components or characters have died. But you know what? It's catching me off guard, which I want it to, because at the same time, if everything that I was predicting or hoped happened, it would, what's the excitement and, surprising factor to the show than if I'm constantly predicting everything that's happening. So yes, it hasn't gone in the manner that I thought it was going to, but it's keeping me on my toes because I didn't know that Rhaegal was going to die in that last episode. And yeah, it was kind of strange how it happened and unfolded, but I didn't expect it. And I think that that's what needs to keep happening. As long as we don't get that Disney happy-go-lucky ending, I think I'll be okay with this and be waiting for those books to come out.
See, I think the books at this point have just kind of hurt us because all along the people that have read the books kind of knew what was coming and they kind of could mold their theories of how the show was going to play out based off of their knowledge in the books. Now that we don't have that, our theories are wild, and a lot of them are really fucking good. And I like the show, to my point of view, hasn't lived up to the theories that I've seen online. I've seen theories online that are like, holy fucking shit, that is amazing. But the show has been lackluster.
Yeah. What do you
And Euron is deadly with that damn medieval weapon that he's got attached to his boat. I didn't even know those things were that accurate.
Yeah, the guy that cast it as Euron, I think, is they hit the nail on the head with him. He's got that sort of charismatic, but very, it's almost like he's not Ramsay, but he's a decent replacement for Ramsay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not as sinister, but he's like still like he's on the bad guy's side and he's good at what he does. So yeah.
He's like that cocky, arrogant wrestling heel.
Yep, I get that. So yeah, let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and dive into a recap of this last episode, and so we start off with it where we pick up where we last were at the Battle of Winterfell, and we have all the bodies that they're basically burning, and of course all the main characters are going out and they have their torch and they're symbolically going to a certain body that they're going to burn. Grey Worm has one of his unsullied. We have Danny goes to Jorah. We have Sansa goes to Theon, and yada yada yada. Samwell goes to Ed, the head of or the Night's Watch. Good scene. It's I thought it was a good send off for those characters, and I don't have any issues with that part. That being said, how did you guys feel about that wrap up of the battle?
I thought it was appropriate. It was nice that they gave a little send off. I like that Sansa put the little Stark pendant on Theon. I didn't really care too much for Theon as a character, even up after his arc and all that. I still thought that he sucked, but that was a nice touch to give him like that little Stark on his chest. But yeah, I thought it was fine. I didn't have any issues with that. I thought it was kind of a moving moment, and then it moved right into the next scene, which everyone still had a very somber tone, and it was appropriate for what you would do after you just burnt a bunch of fucking bodies. You would kind of sit around and be like, well, shit.
That must have smelled god awful.
I said the same thing when I was watching. I was like, God, that must stink.
Yeah, then you have Gendry goes to the Hound shortly after talking about Arya, and the Hound has his little moment where he's like, "We just burnt a bunch of bodies, and you're talking about this? Like, what the fuck?"
Yeah, he's got a one-track mind.
Boys will be boys.
But Brandon, you say it was kind of somber, which I can see that. But on my second watch today, I'd say they transformed Winterfell into like a college house party. I mean, you get Tormund's getting drunk, spilling goat's milk everywhere, wine. And then we get a call back to season 1 where Brienne is playing a drinking game with Tyrion and Podrick.
I love that Tyrion was such a wingman in that.
Yeah,
he was the ultimate wingman. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. And and then we see Tormund, of course, picking up girls, and the Hound's shaking them off. But we see these kind of almost like freshman sorority girls of Winterfell trying to just give it to the two big characters, and then of course Brienne loses her virginity, because what's a college house party without someone losing their virginity, right?
Awesome. Man, I kind of put it as the ones in charge were more somber, I guess. They were the ones that knew that the serious shit was going on, and then the other ones are partying. It's the same thing as officers and enlisted in the military.
Yep.
Yeah, officers would in that scenario be very serious, and then like the lower ranking people would just be shit faced.
Yep.
Oh, we just got paid.
Yep, pounding Bud Lights in the barracks,
going to the PX, grabbing some beer and whatnot. Yeah.
What I thought was funny that Brandon pointed out is that despite all the toasts that they had, Danny never took a sip.
I've got to correct myself on that one. I did watch it back a second time, and she drinks after not after toasting to Gendry, but in the next scene it shows her sipping her cup. So
okay,
it shows her drinking something.
But you could definitely tell she wasn't trying to keep up with everybody. She was definitely trying to stay sober.
It also makes me think that her awarding him, I guess you would say, the lordship and the unbastardification.
We'll
That's
go
a
with that.
word. That's a word. Look it up. Um, was kind of half-assed or half-hearted.
That was actually my next point is how did you guys feel about Danny kind of overstepping John at this point and taking over and offering Storm's End to Gendry? I mean, I get she feels she's in power and everything, but as far as being in the North, being in Winterfell, you don't have that claim yet. The North, especially Sansa Stark, does not really care for you. So for you to kind of go and offer that sort of lordsmanship to somebody, that's kind of overstepping your bounds. But
Yeah, I think that was just a cheap attempt at trying to gain a follower, like she's done in the past, where she frees some people and then they just follow her along with whatever else she's doing. Um, Obviously, Gendry was a bastard of Robert Baratheon, so she made that point to say, "Your father basically killed my father and took my throne. So instead of killing you or whatever, I'm going to give you your land." And like you said, that was a overstep, but she considers herself the queen of the whole entire realm. So
yeah,
She's playing the game. She's looking favorable in front of the people. She's gaining an ally, what he thinks is an ally, but she's using them. It's pawns. She's playing the game. She even told Tyrion, "You're not the only one that can be clever."
it's a good point. All right, so one last interaction that I want to get to in the dining hall. I think one of the biggest moments of this episode is the exchange between the Hound and Sansa Stark. Uh, it's obviously been a while since they've seen each other, and the Hound is obviously aware of everything that she's dealt with since the last time that they've had a conversation or even had an encounter. Sansa survived Ramsay, she survived Joffrey, and even Littlefinger. And then it's whenever she gets to the comments and she kind of lists the men that she's had to kind of climb that hurdle. She says without Ramsay, Littlefinger, and the rest, I would have stayed a little bird all my life. And I thought that was a testament to who Sansa's become in this big character arc since season 1.
yeah, she's had a huge one for sure. She used to be a timid little weakling girl, and then she was just a bunch of assholes' wives, and now she's the lady of Winterfell, and who knows what's in store for her. She's gonna have a crazy character arc.
Yeah, I mean, before the events of Game of Thrones start, she was basically being schooled to be a woman, like a lady, all the finer things in life and all that stuff. So for her to now be so ruthless and cutthroat and a good leader, she has learned a lot. And you listed off all these horrible people that influenced her and were a big part of her arc. The one that you're forgetting is Cersei Lannister.
It's a good point.
She was a pupil of Cersei, so she knows how to play this game. My wife pointed out the other day, she was I don't know where she got this or how she came to this conclusion, but she said, "I think Sansa's going to be on the throne or the queen or whatever in some regard at the end." And I was like, "No, that's not going to happen." I dismissed it pretty quickly. But since she said it, I've been thinking about it more and more. And like she plays the game.
Absolutely.
She learned from everyone.
Yeah, and there's actually a good way. I'm glad you pointed that out. It's been noted in the past that whoever she is kind of under, or whoever influences her at the time, she actually kind of mimics their hairstyle, which is kind of a cool payoff to where she learns. That's something I saw in a meme on social media somewhere, but it is true. If you go back to when she's hanging around Cersei mostly, she mimics that hair, then Marjorie and yada yada. But everyone's talking about Danny and Cersei. I think we need to pay a little more attention to Cersei and Sansa. Although Sansa doesn't have the Golden Company or the same military that Danny has, I think she knows how to play the game 10 times better than Danny does.
I agree with that.
If Danny doesn't have her dragons, Danny isn't, a
She ain't
threat.
shit. Yeah,
She
she
ain't
ain't shit
shit.
without dragons.
Yeah.
I think, what is it, Varys? I think he suspects some crazy shit going on. No, talking about people that know how to play the game and understand the game. He sees what's happening, and that scene where I believe it was also in the hall where she gets really pissed off when Danny gets really pissed off, and then Varys is just sitting there watching the whole thing happen.
Yeah.
And he later talks to Tyrion about it, and they have their whole story arc now. That's should we tell or not tell, but that's for later in the episode, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. We'll definitely get around to that. I got some notes from that.
I'm sorry, I ramble and I just go off on tangents. It
No, you're
happens.
good, man. That's how I mean that's what lit for best conversation, man. You just keep going.
I definitely think if something happens to John and Danny, because from what I can tell, those are the front runners to lead this whole thing when it's all said and done. But if something happens to those two, then I look for Sansa to have some kind of seat at the throne or to be involved heavily some way like that.
As she should. I mean, a lot of people hate Cersei, for example. Cersei's one of my favorite characters, kind of like Littlefinger was because of how they played the game. People can hate her for everything she's done, and I don't agree with her sleeping with her twin brother, and I don't agree with half the things that she's done. But when it comes to bringing some dramatic fashion to the story, I mean, Cersei's up there with all the other villains. Like, she is a badass. I mean, nothing against that, you know?
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
show would be shit without her.
She survived a lot too.
And
Look where she came from.
exactly. I mean, and it's as upset as I am with how the Night King has, ended thus far from all we know, and how the
He'll be
Army of
back.
the Dead. I hope he is back. But in the same fashion, I am sort of relieved that the villain is Cersei Lannister, and it's not some half-ass villain. It's somebody that we have seen, coming on a collision course with our heroes since the beginning. So this was bound to happen. It's just a little unfortunate that this is the main battle that we're going into.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's nothing we can control. I think this one will be a good one. I expect to have at least one or two major characters be taken out for this battle of King's Landing or whatever they're going to call it.
Yeah. So after the dining hall scene that we get, Bronn just somehow strolls into Winterfell, and we get this pretty incredible exchange between Bronn and Tyrion and Jaime. And we see that he has that crossbow that he was equipped with by Qyburn, who was given to him by Cersei. And, he lays it out on the table and punches Tyrion in the nose and kind of says, hey, look, either you give me double river run or I'm going to kill one of you or both of you. I'll need one of you to take back. And
Do you think?
Go ahead.
Do you think he was telling the truth there? Like, do you think he really would have killed them? I think he was just playing his hand, and he went all in.
I think he made a great hedge bet. He already has the deal from Cersei that if they end up dead or whatever, he can say that he killed them or whatever and get River Run. If the dragons go and kill Cersei and all that crazy shit, then he's got his deal with the Lannister boys to get Highgarden. He wins either way. He's not going to fight. He's going to be in a bar somewhere or in a pub with a couple of wenches. I'll try to speak, within the period and not just say a bunch of,
hookers
and hoes and shit.
Yeah, no, he's playing his hand right. I don't agree with it necessarily because he did grow so close to Tyrion and Jaime, even though it was a sellsword kind of a deal. But, in that sense, they were almost like brothers. It was two different arcs between both the characters. But, I mean, he walked in there having to kill one of them. And instead of having to kill either of them, he just says, hey, give me something better. And he's potentially going to walk out with Highgarden, which is an insanely, a big leap compared to River Run.
But he made the perfect point. He said, who were your ancestors that first came and got your land? They were cutthroat. It was somebody that came in and kicked the other person out.
Yep.
And then he says something about so their grandsons can piss it all away or whatever, and that was pretty funny.
Yeah, he had a good line right there. We basically said like cutthroats win all the shit and then pussies lose it all or something.
Yep.
Yeah. And he's not wrong.
Yeah. I kind of expect something to go on here. Like either he's gonna die somehow by accident because he's like trying to avoid fighting or something. I don't think he's just gonna get off scot-free with this whole thing.
there's got to be something complicated coming for these three characters in this little, I guess, scenario they've put out. But kind of like you say, I don't know. I mean, there's certain times in this season, like when Jorah's or not Jorah, when Davos is serving soup to all the people in Winterfell before the battle, and that young girl that looks like Shireen Baratheon comes up, and you expect to kind of see her again. And then when you come down to it, you're like, what was the purpose of that scene? That she sort of looked like the girl? It didn't really, there was nothing, unless they were just trying to get across the point that everyone's going to the crypt and the crypt is, in quotation, safe. But we all saw how that ended up.
Yeah, she did not defend shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, she for her little spiel, she didn't really do a damn thing.
That is true. They have shown things that in the end don't matter, like Ghost this whole time.
Yep.
They've like been showing glimpses and then nothing happens. So I could be definitely wrong. I think there's a lot of stuff that fans are reading into, like Brandon pointed out. There's all these theories that fans are coming up with, but the show just seems to be giving us a very vanilla scenario of everything. So maybe he will just ride off in the end of it all and he'll have his freaking castle, but that would be weird. That would be a really shitty ending for his character.
Mm-hmm.
But would it though? I mean, it's kind of fitting. He's done everything he needed to do to secure his livelihood, his legacy, and he's done that. And now he's got this hedge bet in place. No matter what happens, he gets something. Why would he go and fight? Why would he go and do something? I would wait it out too. And then
it wouldn't be a very Game of Thrones ending for his character.
That's true. Well, yes and no. I mean, it's a smart way to be one of the next pieces on the puzzle board.
He doesn't have a claim to shit. He's had to weasel his way into getting anything. He said it himself.
Shit, he might be on the throne at the end.
No way.
As backwards as it is, what Bronn is doing to both the Lannister brothers. I mean, if you look at his story, isn't that the American dream?
Kinda.
Yeah, I guess.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Get a big house with a moat. That's my dream.
So after this Bronn Lannister brother ordeal, we get the final moment that we didn't really get. We have Jon with Bran with his two sisters, and they're meeting up, and the secret is finally told off screen. We don't get to see it.
Bullshit.
And then what was a secret that Eddard Stark kept for 18 plus years? Sansa told in less than 2 minutes to Tyrion Lannister.
Yeah, as soon as she found out, she was ready to play. But that goes into what we were talking about earlier. She's playing the game. She's planting that seed of knowledge into the one person that she knows can make a difference, the hand of Daenerys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
that info was just a weapon for her, and she immediately used it.
And and it's not even like spiteful out of her, her family member. I'm going to guess say Jon now, because essentially either her or Jon needs to be on the throne at the end of the game. So this isn't going to hurt her or Jon unless Dany tries to intervene somehow and take out Jon, or which I personally can't see unless she just goes ballistic within the last 2 episodes on the good guys. But I think Sansa did a good thing by telling Tyrion, because that's at this late in the game, somebody else needs to know besides the people that already did.
Yeah. It's interesting because we all think that Danny's going to have this mad queen heel turn thing. And I don't know if this is going to push her over the edge or not, like, because basically everyone but her is like, hey, Jon's actually a Targaryen. So, and she's not really feeling that. So I don't know. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then we get to probably the worst proposal of all time between Gendry and Arya.
Well, it wasn't a bad proposal.
Oh, it was fucking god awful.
I mean, he got the words out.
He just came out of nowhere. Hey, we slept together one night, so marry me.
I mean, how many Marines have you known that went out to the strip club? Shout out Driftwoods, Jacksonville, North Carolina. Met a stripper, professed his love in the champagne room, and was married by like 3 weeks later.
I don't know any personally, but that is a
I know
huge
like 4.
stereotype. Yeah, that's a huge stereotype, and
I've
which we made fun of that whole scenario that Gendry put himself in.
I've heard some stories about it, and I've kind of been witness to some in the Navy and the Marines that have done that. But yeah, what Gendry did is a exhibit A of what you do not do after you sleep with someone for the first time. That just that doesn't. I don't care if you're inheriting some great castle and land. You just don't do that.
I mean, but I get why he was doing it because he has no fucking clue what he's doing as a lord or
Arya,
as a man on his own. He's been told what to do his whole life.
Yeah,
he just knows how to beat the shit out of iron. That's pretty much it.
He was an apprentice, so he got
Yep.
told what to do.
and he was a bastard his whole life, so people look down on bastards anyway.
He has no clue what's going on. So
And in Arya's defense, she just took out the Night King. I don't think her next plan is to, go sack up over at Storm's End and throw some dinner parties. So that doesn't sound like Arya Stark to me.
that's not her style.
Yeah, she's not going to put away her many faces and just start baking cookies.
Speaking of baking, do you think we'll see hot pie along the way?
I hope so, man.
Do you think as she and the Hound are traveling, they'll stop and see hot pie?
Do we know like what he's up to? Is he just hanging out someplace?
Last I remember, he was at that little shack cooking.
You know what I'm thinking? We saw Starbucks already in the last episode. Like I said on y'all's show Monday, what if the Hound's on his way south and he finds KFC run by Hot Pie and he gets his chickens that way?
I mean, it's possible, I guess. I wonder if they would have a drive-through for horses.
They should. People got to eat on the road.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are a little out of order.
Okay.
But we have the Iron Fleet sinks the Targaryen ships, or what we saw of them, and kills Rhaegal the dragon.
That was insane.
We're getting back on topic.
That
Yeah.
completely took me off of my guard. That caught me off guard. I thought it was basically just going to be a 100% setup episode for this battle, and when they took out the second dragon, man, that was insane. And like Brandon alluded to, I didn't think that those weapons would be all that great. No, they have a shit ton of them, and they took that fleet out quick.
Somebody somewhere in the show, I don't know who, I don't know where, one of my buddies at work pointed this out to me, but he said that there was a quote, and I'm probably wrong, but whatever, that the chances of hitting a flying dragon with one of those what are we calling those arrows, things, harpoons,
yeah, whatever,
the odds of hitting is like 1 in 800,000 or whatever, something astronomical. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's believable to hit a flying object with this medieval fucking piece of machinery.
Well,
it would be tough, but they landed 3 shots or 2 or 3 shots, including a neck shot from that distance.
Well, I mean, let's be real here. This is HBO. This is Hollywood. I mean, Samwell did navigate his way around the Battle of Winterfell with a butter knife. So, I mean, the odds are endless. I mean, the odds are ever in their favor for sure.
Brienne was surrounded the whole episode and made it out alive.
I guess if I'm to believe that Arya killed the Night King, then this is also believable.
Yeah, it just it's very convenient, to say the least. But kind of like you said the other day, Brandon, I didn't mean to sound too cynical about it because I had kind of come on and said, I didn't even care at this point about the dragon. But when that neck shot went through Rhaegal, damn, like that hit me. I was like, dude, this poor dragon. I mean, it was pretty shitty to see.
Yeah, it got me. I was not expecting it. Like Zach, I thought that it was going to be a big setup episode more than anything. But I guess, earlier I said that I only called the sex scenes. I did call that Cersei was going to be setting traps along the way. And I take that as a win because that's definitely a trap that she set.
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%.
I think the next episode we'll see more traps throughout the city of King's Landing.
And, since we were talking about Varys earlier, we'll actually get into more Varys talk later about him and Tyrion and a potential new plan. But, with his little birds that are everywhere, how did nobody know that the Iron Fleet is kind of just hanging around Dragonstone? Like how is this not so? And since we're on topic too, not to bring Bran up because he's not really done shit. He's basically Google without Googling in this show.
He's
If you,
Westeros Google.
pretty much, uh, he can warg into ravens. We get that. I think the others can assume, or they at least know that he does this. I don't think that they just assume that he goes, full retard when he rolls his eyes in the back of his head. You use this man as a drone, fly over King's Landing, do some
Recon?
recon,
Yeah.
do some recon, go shit on Cersei's shoulder, just keep her in check, do something. But he's just not being used, and I find it very hard to believe that you have that weapon and you're not using it to its advantage.
Or if your brand say, hey, I can turn into a raven and go look at stuff. Let me do that instead of just sit on this fucking wheelchair and stare off into the distance.
I don't care about things anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I live in the past now. I'm just like, who is this guy?
It's because he's fucking evil, dude.
Yeah,
He
you're
better
probably
have
right.
he better have some mega crazy character arc and he turns out to be something insane. Because if not, this whole thing where he's like weird and Asperger's and he just like stares off into the freaking unknown and says weird shit is all for nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not at all what I thought. But we have 2 episodes left, so I guess we'll, hunker down and see what happens. But I don't know. It doesn't look too promising for anybody that thought Bran had some significance to the end of the story,
Yeah.
at least on the HBO series.
Yeah. But getting back to what you were asking with the harpoons and everything, whenever they turned and shot the fleet, and then we saw the mast fall and hit Tyrion right between the eyes, and then the next scene he was just shaking it off like it was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that sucks that we lost a lot of the fleet, but that's another unbelievable scene that, that mast would have taken him out. Tyrion should be dead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think you said it's plot armor.
Mhm.
right. If you're gonna have him survive through that, why even show that at all? It doesn't make sense.
Unnecessary. Yeah, it's just overkill at this point. It was designed to make us be like, is Tyrion dead? Only to reveal that he's not literally 10 seconds later.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
Yeah,
is
I mean,
dumb.
even in the last season, they did that with Jamie, and a lot of us thought legitimately, man, Jamie might be dead going into that following episode. But at least it was cheaper with this one. I obviously didn't think Tyrion was dead. I don't think any of us really did. At this point, it's hard to kind of buy into anybody dying unless I see them getting burned or something. But
Yeah, whatever happens off screen doesn't really happen.
yeah. And then we have the Hound, Arya, and then now Jaime Lannister all headed back to King's Landing.
I think they're going to link up. I think they're all going to meet up at that cottage with Hot Pie.
Like all three, like Three Amigos style?
Yeah, they'll be hanging out because for all they know, Jaime Lannister's still on their team, which I don't think he ever was. If you rewind all the things back in your head, when he left King's Landing, he left going to say that he was going to go fight for the living.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He never said he was going to go fight for the Dragon Queen or fight for the North. He said he's going to go fight for the living. I think he just wanted to go fight to see if he still had it, if he could still hack.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think that there are other ways to see if you can still hack besides fighting the army of the dead. But
That's the best way possible. He's fought other wars. He's fought all these other things. That's the ultimate enemy.
your point though, and I never really thought of it this way. He did say he was going up there to fight, for the living. The living have been saved from what we know. So now he has no reason to stick around. He already did his little wham bam thank you ma'am sesh with Brienne. And so, maybe it wasn't as good as he thought. And he said, I'm gonna go back to my twin sister because we've been doing the same thing since we were 8. Why not?
Yeah, I just don't think that he was ever there for the intentions that everyone else does. I see through his facade. Like the conversation that he had with Tyrion when he first arrived, about how vile and nasty Cersei was, and Jaime was like, "Yeah, she fooled all of us, me most of all." And Tyrion turned around to say it to his face because he was a couple steps higher.
Yeah.
He turned around and said to his face that she did not fool you. You always known what she is, and you loved her anyway. And Jamie's face after that was like, well, goddamn, he's on to me. Because I think at that point, Jamie was realizing he was evil too. And then
I
when
don't
he was telling Brienne, all these things that I did for Cersei. I did them for Cersei because she's hateful and I'm hateful. He told Danny when he was begging for his life, basically, everything he did for his family, and he would do it all again. He was never there to be a good guy.
I don't know what you think, Zach, but and Brandon, you make great points. But is it more of he having like an underlying agenda that he's going with, or is this part of Jamie Lannister's character arc where he goes from this, Knight of the King's Guard to being captured to getting to know Brienne to kind of losing his way within the Lannister, family tree and almost not really knowing where he fits. Am I good? Am I bad? And I almost feel like maybe what you said about Tyrion talking to him, maybe it's a lot of reinforcement going back into Jamie's head and him going, you know what? Maybe I am evil. Maybe I am the bad guy that I'm trying to avoid, and I just need to be who I am. I mean, I don't know. I didn't mean to sound like some, TED Talks to to Jamie Lannister, but I mean, what do you?
He does have an insanely complicated like character or personality or whatever you want to classify it as.
Well, think of how the Jamie Lannister story even starts. It starts with him stabbing the king in the back, who he was sworn to protect.
Yes, but it wasn't just a regular old king. It was the Mad King, who was like one of the worst kings that we've known in this story.
Mhm.
Right. But if you have that oath and you're an honest, loyal person to your word, which was important to knights back in that time, that was like the ultimate sin
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can see why he did it.
for his family, because
Right.
that's what it's all about, for him,
Yeah.
for his family, for his sister to sit on the Iron Throne.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I think his intention at first was to stop the Mad King, and then shit just started unraveling from there. I don't know, but I think he's kind of had too much on his plate for him to handle.
Yeah.
Um, he was just a knight to begin with, and then all of a sudden he's relatives with the king, and then all of a sudden his family is on the throne, and all the while he's just trying to bang his sister. So I don't know if he was necessarily has set out to do anything purposefully. He's just a guy who's doing stuff, and then it all turns out to be, oh, Cersei's a terrible person, and I guess that makes me terrible too because I love her and I never called her out on her bullshit.
You are what you eat.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just even being held at captive and all that stuff, he did exactly what you would do to survive. You can lie and sound sincere.
Right. But if I don't understand why he went back at all. Like, you want to test and see if you can still fight people? Like, who cares?
I mean,
He does.
the machismo thing, yeah. He's one of the legendary knights of the kingdom. Like, that's important to the knights of this era. Like, they're always talking about, Sir Banniston the Brave and blah blah blah. Sir Stymie, the Sword of Dawn, and they've got all these legendary people. Jamie Lannister wants to be one of those knights that they sing songs about.
Yeah. We'll have to see what he does once he gets back to King's Landing. Like,
It's going to be bad things.
Yeah, and before we get on to the next thing, I just, this goes back to the issue of time travel and how fast we have to move through these seasons, but I find it very hard to believe that Jamie went up north, did some good deeds, and then he got with Brienne, who he's been, kind of going after since they first got paired up towards the beginning of the show. And then within that same episode, he's, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go back to Cersei. It's just, for me, it's hard to accept. It's too quick of a flip.
Yeah,
And
it's all just too convenient timeline wise. Like, this shit would take fucking months to do on horseback. But since we only have 2 episodes left, they're just going to somehow warp to the other side of the world.
Yeah. So
Like in terms of states, how far do you think these places are?
I would say the way they describe it, but then again, we don't have cars. We're going off horseback. So I would
True.
say possibly Winterfell, The Last Hearth, all those. They're probably New York City. And then King's Landing is probably one of the Carolinas, maybe.
Oh wow. See, you're making it a lot bigger than I thought
Yeah,
it
it's
was.
huge. That place is
See,
huge.
I pictured it like the size of maybe England.
Okay, that's still
We'd have
kind
to
of
look at
big
a
though.
map.
And
Yeah,
it's still big, but I mean I think it's a lot smaller than from New York to the Carolinas.
It could be.
But
yeah.
like I mean or maybe like the size of California is all of Westeros. And so it's not unbelievable that they could do, a trip from King's Landing, which is LA, and make it to Winterfell, which is, Northern California.
Well, ask me. Season 1 through 6, it's New York City of the Carolinas. Season 7 and 8, it's fucking Brooklyn to Queens.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I definitely can agree to that because they are flying in this season.
Cersei's waving at him. Let's be real here. I mean,
That this internet rumor that I think is absolute bullshit about the dragons going off and having more dragons or
I
whatever.
saw that.
That's the only
Yeah,
way that this is possible, and everybody in Westeros has one. Just
yeah.
flying dragons back and forth. It's like a fucking interstate in the sky.
Those were the first airplanes. It was just dragons and load people up on them.
747 dragons.
That theory is so dumb.
Yeah.
I think this show is going to end with 0 dragons left.
As it should.
I'm glad you said that because Danny Limelight, who's also on our show, texted me earlier today, and he said something awesome, and we've been kind of going back and forth about it. And it has to do with, no dragons, because he thinks that everything will kind of go back to how it was in the beginning.
Okay.
There were no dragons,
No magic kind of thing.
no magic. And here, I'll just kind of read it.
Yeah,
You
go
see,
for it.
he did. He says, my theory is that the show ends with Jon Snow headless, Dany killed by a Lannister, and a Baratheon on the Iron Throne, married to someone he can't love, pining over a dead Stark. Which is pretty much how the show began, with a Targaryen being killed by a Lannister, Ned is headless, and a Baratheon on the throne with someone he can't love because he loves a dead Stark.
That would be pretty epic. And I could see that. I could see the show writers thinking that that's like their big ending to this show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's their big like jizz on the face moment. Yeah, we got him.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think the books, but that's poetic right there. That's got a lot of, a lot of sauce to it for sure.
I'd be satisfied with that. I would rather have that than like John on the throne or something stupid.
My only thing is that I have a hard time clearing the path and putting Gendry there.
Yeah. I feel like as much as it would kind of suck to see John or Danny because the show has been kind of wrapped around those two, it would almost be a shit payoff if it wasn't one of those two, unless it's Sansa, someone that was sort of a main character at this point. But if it's someone like Gendry, where we've seen a total of maybe 10 episodes the entire show, that's a little
He is a Baratheon though. So
Yeah.
he has a claim to the throne.
Well,
in a
he's
sense.
only legitimized now under Danny's rule, not under Cersei's.
Right.
So
Which is a fucked scenario.
If Cersei's still on the throne, then he's still a bastard.
Yeah.
And doesn't have rights to storms in. So that's kind of it's like, hey, you can have this house if we win.
Basically.
Speaking of a lot of things going, behind the scenes and playing the Game of Thrones, not to get us back on topic, but
No,
let's
please
talk
do.
about that conversation between Tyrion Lannister and Varys the Spider.
Whew. There's a lot to that conversation, that they throw out the two possible ideas of what they can do and how to play this. And I think that's the meat and potatoes of this conversation, if you will. Marry them and hope that they can rule in harmony, talking about John and Danny,
Mhm.
or one has to be eliminated, essentially.
So here's some key quotes from listening today, and then I went back to season 5 whenever Tyrion is first being explained the situation between Varys and Daenerys Targaryen. Uh, he says, and I quote to Tyrion, "The Seven Kingdoms need someone stronger than Tommen, but gentler than Stannis, a monarch who could intimidate the High Lords and inspire the people, a ruler loved by millions, with a powerful army and the right family name." And then, of course, he says, "Who said anything about him?" At the time, yeah, I could see that. But now we're at this point in the show. I don't think she really checks off anything on that list.
She's kind of going crazy, especially that now that John has a better claim to the throne. She's going fucking nuts. Like, you remember the face she made when Cersei killed what's her name?
Miss Sandy.
Yeah.
Miss Andy, yeah.
She's losing it, man. And as the show alludes, everyone loves John and everyone wants John to be the king. I just think that's too easy.
Yep.
Which they took the easy way out with the Night Kings. So
That's true.
Yeah. It makes sense. It's convolute the plot and just make it all about this stuff again. And then in the conversation, some more key things that are said. Varys tells Tyrion, "You know my loyalty stands. You know I will never betray the realm," giving off his, his position of power that he holds, where he is going to protect the people no matter what. And then we see that both Tyrion and Varys believe Jon would be the better ruler. Tyrion doesn't actually say it, but the only thing he really says is he doesn't want the throne. And we know he's talking about Jon in that stance. And then once they keep talking about it a little more, Tyrion ends up saying, "We're discussing treason." Of course, I've thought about it, but thoughts aren't treason. So immediately what they're doing right there, they're playing a dangerous game. I mean, what if by some chance, not to throw a theory out there, but I guess I sort of am, what if something gets wrapped up and Tyrion, ends up having to face Daenerys for things that he said, or they get caught trying to overthrow Dany and maybe they get burnt alive?
well, you're bringing up all these quotes. She did tell Varys that if he ever betrayed her, that she would burn him alive.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's her first act as the Mad Queen. You know, she
Well,
burns.
I think her first act as the Mad Queen's going to be to burn up King's Landing.
Well, right.
She's pretty pissed off about that shit right now.
Yeah, but like, what would set her off as the Mad Queen better than burning her hand and another of her advisors alive? You know, and then she would really show everyone, like, oh shit,
Brandon, you make a good point.
Up.
In season 7, Melisandre does, I believe, she does say to Varys, "We're gonna die in this strange land." To Varys, so yeah, I mean, his death note's pretty much written as well. So maybe that's the way that he's going out.
Yep.
Maybe
he is really smart, though. I mean, he's survived this long.
Yeah, it's a good point. But yeah, going back to where if she does rain fire on King's Landing, which I think we're all expecting her to do,
she will.
Varys has told her, "These are the people you came to protect. I beg you, your grace, do not destroy the city you came to save. Do not become what you have always struggled to defeat." And this is part of Cersei's, trap she's setting. It's easier to make her look like the villain when Dany comes in there and she's raining hellfire on innocent people that are in the way.
You think Dany will do that? I think so.
I mean, didn't Cersei say, or somebody say, that all the King's Landing citizens are in the Red Keep right now?
Yeah, she opened up the doors and all that stuff, which I think that's part of her trap. I said it on our show. I think that she's basically setting up the wildfire to be in the city, so that whenever the troops come marching through the city, she'll set them off.
That's a good point.
Much like they did Battle of Blackwater, where they set the water on fire. Whenever the ships got to a certain point, they set it on fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's a similar strategy.
I definitely think Dany is ready to burn this whole city to the ground.
The only thing that I'm hesitant on is because they have all those civilians in there. If there was a way that she could guarantee that she wouldn't kill all the people, I think she would go about it that way.
Yeah.
I just think it would be too much. But I mean, we've only got 2 episodes left, so who the fuck knows?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how they're going to tie in the rest of the North. I know they've sort of given us the idea that the North is kind of done for now, but I don't see us never seeing Tormund or Sansa ever again. I'd be cool if we don't see Samuel again, but I want to see some Tormund in the North. I want to see what happens with him. Hopefully, we see some White Walkers pop up out of nowhere.
I think
And
Tormund sees White Walkers.
yeah, I hope you're right on that. And then something's got to happen with Sansa. Maybe Sansa comes to save the day, like she did with the Knights of the Vale, the Battle of the Bastards. Who knows?
I've been trying to, in my mind, figure out how Sansa and Brienne are going to get south. Because, like you, I think it's a waste of characters to have them up north.
Yep.
And I think Tormund plays a big role in that. I think he goes back north with Ghost. I think Ghost probably has a death scene because of a White Walker or a Night King maybe
Hmm.
finds him or something. And Tormund sees that, and then he comes back to tell Brienne and Sansa, and then they all flee from Winterfell and go down south. I, that's the only thing I can really come up with, and that gets everybody back down south for the end of the big battle.
And you make good points. I mean, you and I were both proponents thinking that Beric Dondarrion and Tormund were going to die right at the start of the season. I
Yeah, I tried so hard to get that
yeah,
rumor going, or that I will that to be true, but so far he's still alive.
yeah, I find it very hard that they have kept Tormund alive thus far because A, he's a fan favorite, and just because they wanted to see him get denied by Brienne. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, in this season, they tried to fit too many of his one-liners. When his
Yeah.
one-liners worked in the past, it was because they were truly one-liners.
Yep.
You can't give them 3 jokes in one episode and expect them all to hit, and it just got to be too much.
They've turned him into almost like a Rob Gronkowski kind of guy. Like he's
Mhm.
just like this like party dude, and it's I get it, but it's like overbearing at some point. Like, okay, we understand he's not civilized, he's from the north, but let's move on to bigger and better shit. Like he's not
Right.
and he's not an idiot. I feel like if you go I need to rewatch it, but if you go in the earlier seasons, he was not the dumbass they kind of play him off to be now.
No,
It
it's kinda like they've written him off as, like you said, kind of like that party boy,
yeah.
and it sucks that he's gotten that way, but some people still love him, Garth.
Mm.
Yeah, Garth, man, I think he'd date him in a heartbeat. Or we should start some type of like online hashtag or something. Help Garth meet Tormund.
And that would be hilarious,
For
but
the for those
it
of you that don't know, Garth is another one of Brandon and
oh,
Zach's
yeah.
good buddies that is on the Nest podcast. He's on that panel, and he is also got and he loves Tormund Giantsbane.
Yeah, I forgot we're not on our show.
He was wholeheartedly he had wholeheartedly thought that Brienne and Tormund were going to hook up and start making babies, but no.
Have you guys talked to him at all about how he took that news?
No, I really haven't. He'll be on the one of the next episodes of our podcast anyway, so we'll catch him on there.
Yeah, because he was heavily invested in that, but it is what it is. We were heavily invested in the Night King, and that didn't work out either. But
Yet.
okay, and then and then the last thing before we get to talking about the good and the bad is obviously Miss Sandy gets beheaded at the end of the episode, and potential Mad Queen Danny ensues.
Yeah, I mean, we've already kind of hit on that a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's coming. I've been calling for Mad Queen Danny since like season 5, but it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting that the show kept the Grey Worm character and got rid of her. I thought that the Grey Worm character would have died in the battle or something,
Mhm.
but I guess he'll try to get his revenge or something coming here soon. I don't know what they're going to do with him.
He's been a great meme. Me Sunday.
I've seen a few pretty good ones floating around. One that I had an issue with was it was a Miss Sandy, and it was supposed to be an ice cream
Yeah, that's the one I'm
sundae.
quoting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was an ice cream cone
Mm,
Yeah.
and not a sundae.
they
And
screwed that up.
I was a little bit
We
sad
understood
about
the
that.
context, but whoever created obviously doesn't know shit about ice cream or desserts.
Yeah, step your game up, man. Don't fuck with my ice creams.
And actually, this next part, since we're talking about Miss Sandy already, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of hit on a couple of good things I thought from this episode. And the first one for me was the Miss Sandy execution. A lot of people are upset by it, and I like Miss Sandy, but this needed to happen, and I thought this was very out of left field for me. I thought Grey Worm would have died before she did, and it was pretty relentless on the Mountain and Cersei's part.
I like that it was Missandei and not Grey Worm because it's more significant to Dany.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
If it would have been Grey Worm that got killed, that was more significant to Missandei.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have impacted Dany as much. It wouldn't pushed her over the edge to make her the queen or the Mad Queen.
What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I agree. That now that you've mentioned that makes sense. It's a better character to kill for the progression of whatever they're trying to do here. So that makes sense. I kind of thought, and I said, if I was Cersei, I would fucking kill them all right here and now and be done with it. But that wouldn't be good for the show.
And it's over. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Okay, next good thing on my list, and this is very straightforward. Everyone got laid.
Well, yeah. Jamie and Brienne got laid. Who else? Who else got laid?
Arya and
Podrick.
Gendry.
Well,
Podrick.
Podrick had a threesome. Good for him.
Yeah,
Good for him. He deserved it.
He's the real MVP besides Ghost. He's been in behind the scenes doing his thing.
Sam made his own child instead of
raising his baby mama's daddy's baby daddy.
I don't think there's other than meat or meat pie.
Hot pie.
Yeah, hot pie. I don't think there's any virgins out here.
Meat pie.
I don't think there's any virgins out in the story.
Oh, Varys.
Yeah, well,
he might be. We don't know what he did before he got cut, but
yeah. Another good thing that happened that I thought was good was the complications that we saw between Bronn of the Blackwater and the Lannister dudes. I thought it's cool to see them all in the same scene again. And of course, we saw it coming that first episode when he was first given the crossbow, but I didn't see this happening going into the season period. I didn't see Bronn being at odd ends with the Lannister guys. So I'm excited to see where this plays out.
Yeah, if I think we've talked about it offline a few times that his story arc has just completely stumped me. Like I haven't known which way to turn since he got separated from the Lannister boys. After he got separated from Jamie, I was like, well, I don't know what he's doing anymore. And I still don't.
Yeah. Go ahead, Zach.
That's why I kind of think that this isn't over. Like he's not just gonna have both sides in his pocket and stay out of it. Something's got to happen here.
Right. Something interesting I actually read. The character the lady that plays Cersei, Lena Headey, and then the actor that plays Bronn, Jerome Flynn. Apparently, they had some off script relationship, and they can't be on scene together. Apparently, they do not work well together at all. So there's a good chance we won't see them in a scene together for the remainder of the show. But apparently, off scene, they were dating for a while, and apparently that didn't end too well, which I thought was pretty interesting.
So Lena Headey is a crazy ex.
Yeah.
But good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
She's not an unattractive woman.
Speaking of Jerome Flynn, on my Instagram, I get random promotional advertisements. He voiceovers for like a sleep app. If you want to hear like very like somebody talking to you and kind of almost like a vinyasa flow, like yoga thing. It's him narrating something. And I was like, what the hell? Like, so I might check it out just to see what the hell is he doing this time off.
Is it his still same accent that he's got?
Yeah, it's Bronn of the Blackwater and his lullabies.
Well, I think that's his real accent.
Yeah.
Well, you know that Grey Worm doesn't sound anything like he sounds at all, and neither does
well, Grey Worm speaks
Cersei.
a different language on the show than
that's true.
He speaks a language that up until recently wasn't an accepted language, but now I saw that it's on a Duolingo app that you can learn High
Oh,
Valyrian.
jeez.
So we're gonna have guys that are just like the Trekkies that speak
Yep.
Klingon and stuff. We're gonna have
Yeah.
people speaking High Valyrian. It's gonna be like, motherfucker, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And Peter Dinklage isn't actually English, so
That's
Yeah.
true.
not everyone's accent matches up.
I got two more good things. So for this one, I just put Sansa because since the beginning of this season, I'm in love with everything Sansa Stark has done, and I think the scene that she had with the Hound was badass, and it was very key to the end game for her. And even whenever she comes back in and delivers the news to Brienne, and Jamie asks what's going on, and she's like, "I was always hoping I'd get to see your sister beheaded or whatever." And she just, I like the presence of Sansa Stark now. She's not little bird anymore. She's not trying to, I just want to be Joffrey's wife and I just want to have his babies. She's a bona fide badass now.
The only thing that she's done, only two things that she's done this season that I wasn't a fan of was whenever she snitched on Jon 15 seconds after finding out, because I see that as a betrayal to her brother. I know
Yeah.
she's playing the game, but I see it as a betrayal. And then she also got married to one of the Jonas brothers. That's just fucking dumb.
I think that she has the
For
balls
you.
that Jon doesn't.
Yeah.
I think that Jon needs to tell, I think Jon is too, and that real quick, not to go off on a tangent, but they want me to believe that there is a love story that exists between Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen. I don't see it. I never saw it in the 7th season. Yeah, I saw them sleep together. There's very minimal chemistry. I don't know. I'm not buying it. They're trying to play this off as the greatest love story of all, and like this is, this is going to be the ultimate thing at the end of, oh, are the lovers going to betray each other? They're not fucking lovers. Like I don't buy it.
Do you
Yeah.
think that's just a knock on the actors, Kit Harington and Emilia Clarke, or the writers that just didn't portray the characters?
Oh, it's
that
terrible
effectively?
writing.
Yeah, I
It-
think so too.
It's terrible writing. I mean, it's with everything. It's just they're moving too fast, and they haven't given me enough clues or hints to show that they are connected. There's a couple of times where like they throw doomy eyes at each other and whatever, but if anything, it's like a summer fling in my eyes. It's not love, but
And nowadays they fight all the time about everything.
So it is like love and marriage, at least.
post love,
Just
post
kidding.
marriage.
My wife is going to listen to this and she's going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
All right,
You know.
last thing on my good list before we get to the bad. Goodbye, Samuel Tarly. I hope.
Yeah, he's about
Yeah.
done. He has nothing else to do. Brandon had this crazy theory that Sam was going to become a wizard and bring magic back, but there is zero time for that.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, I don't picture Sam casting magic missile anytime soon, but you know.
No, and other than revealing what he knew about John's lineage, he hasn't really done shit this episode or this season at all.
Yeah, he hasn't.
So yeah, he's go ahead and off
Just
with
next-
the head.
Just seven. Yeah, just 86 him.
He'll probably survive the whole show. I imagine that the show will end with him with his baby or something.
You
Right.
think he'll end up a Grand Maester or something somewhere?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
in that scenario, it's got to be John or somebody being the king.
Another waste of a character
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
because he went to the what is the place that he went called?
The Citadel.
Yeah. And he learned all that stuff and hasn't used any of it.
He should have been a wizard.
He was like, we need dragon glass. And that's it.
They didn't accept his application to Hogwarts.
I imagine in the book there will be a much bigger story for Sam to have.
I'm sure there will. Okay, so now we'll move into the bad, which I tried to make sure this didn't completely outweigh the good. Okay, so in my opinion, and I guess in everyone's opinion, these dragons in their time are essentially like nuclear weapons. Am I right?
Yeah.
You think that Dany and the rest of her military would handle them like nuclear weapons. Ever since we've seen them in battle, we've seen that they got shot by Bronn in season 7, and when she went up north to help save the everyone going to capture the White Walker, she kind of let them to be vulnerable to getting a, harpoon thrown in or a whatever. And, she's flying over the ocean. Obviously, we can expect the Iron Fleet to come and attack, which was a little off guard to me, but you think that they would expect something along those lines. The other military is completely prepared. I feel like it's very negligible how she is treating her dragons. It's almost like she's asking for them to get shot. She's flying around and it's very lackadaisical. Like if these are your babies essentially, this is your secret weapon to winning the war. You got to do a better damn job at taking care of it.
Yeah, I agree. She's definitely had her dragons in some pretty hairy situations. When the Sons of the Harpy were attacking, they almost took out a dragon. So there is many times that she's been in fucked up situations, and it's like she has no regard for anything except for whatever the fuck she wants to do.
Yep.
And that's been her character for a long time, and everybody loved her and cheered her and praised her.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, that's how she's been this whole time. Just when she didn't have shit, she had to play that role of I'm gonna free all the slaves and this and that. But ultimately, it was just to build an army so she could take on whoever was on the throne in King's Landing. So it only makes sense that she recklessly uses the dragons. I also think that they're kind of a little bit unmanageable. Remember, I think it was last season where they went off and did their own thing because they didn't have food or whatever that was. But nonetheless, she is writing.
People think that the dragons had more dragons.
Yeah, there's no way. All of the dragons that exist are, I believe, related and the same sex.
And going back to slavery real quick that you mentioned, for those of you in the world today that still believe that Daenerys should be considered the best option to sit on the Iron Throne because she is gonna, abolish slavery and all this stuff. Slavery isn't a problem in Westeros. I mean, why did Jorah have to go to Essos in the first place? Because he was selling poachers into slavery. So for Essos, sure, she's abolishing slavery. She's doing whatever and, Marine and all that, but she's not the best option anymore when you go to Westeros. There's plenty other viable options. So I've heard people, online and various other, social media sites that are arguing, well, she's fighting for slavery, blah, 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 and or fighting against slavery. That's not an issue in Westeros. And I think that a lot of people are getting that misconstrued.
Yep, I agree.
All right, and so second thing that's bad, and I think this is at the top of everybody's list, Jon blowing off Ghost.
Yeah, that sucked. That was having Ghost in this last season has been another waste. Like they show him and then nothing.
Yeah, I've been truly disappointed with the use of Ghost in this entire season. And I mean, I've seen the memes floating around of the Tormund and Ghost spinoff, like spoof flyers or whatever. And that would be funny, but it would be dumb. What do you want?
Yeah, slapstick humor.
You want Turner and Hooch, Alaska? That's what you're getting.
Turner and Hooch. Oh man, yeah, no, you're right about that. I mean, Ghost has been behind the scenes, the MVP. He saved Jon numerous times. I'm pretty sure he saved Samwell, which, if you recall, Samwell saved Jorah Mormont, which has led to him saving Dany. So, Ghost has been a big part of the show. He's not just your regular direwolf. There's a reason that he was white. He's Ghost. Go ahead.
I'll be right back.
You're good. But there's a lot that Ghost has done for the show. But I think that this also goes back to, in the books, we see that these characters warg into their animals.
Yeah.
Zach. But in the show, they don't really get into that. We see Bran wargs into the ravens, but in the book, Nymeria and, Arya have this, link, and Lady and Sansa, from what I've heard. And then Jon and Ghost, same thing. But we don't get that. So I could see where signing off on Ghost is one thing, but the way that they went about it was just, it was sad.
Yeah. I saw one thing online that has kind of tried to explain it. And they basically said that Jon, since realizing that he's a Targaryen, he's essentially accepted that as his identity now.
Mm-hmm.
He's basically told Sansa and Arya, hey, I don't want the throne, but Dany helped us defeat the White Walkers, and
Mm-hmm.
the other part of that deal was I have to go help her get her throne back.
Yeah.
And so that's what he's basically decided. And by just shrugging off Ghost, he's essentially gotten rid of all ties to his Stark, identity that he wanted so badly. And now that he knows that he's a Targaryen, he's done with basically all things Stark.
Yeah.
I like that idea, that analogy of like literally shedding his wolf skin,
Mm-hmm.
but he's
Mm-hmm.
still half a Stark.
That's
Yeah, but
an
that's
argument
not
too.
that's not his banner. That's not his last name, and it never was. He just was raised with Starks.
Yeah, but
He knows he was never a Stark, obviously. So
I mean, his mother is buried in the crypt of Winterfell. I mean, he is a Stark. It's just not. That's the thing too with the writing though, is I feel like they're trying to make us feel a certain way or make us see a character a certain way when it doesn't it doesn't really make any feasible sense in this point. I mean,
yeah,
it's just very uncharacteristic of John to do that to Ghost, whether he's shedding off his, Stark wolf skin or whatever. It's just very we all know that John is very submissive when it comes to, um, he did it with Egret, and he's very submissive right now with Dany, and he's very vulnerable, whatnot. But to do that to Ghost is just very, I don't know. It's very uncharacteristic of John. Last thing on the bad list, um, and this I find very hard to believe. I do understand that there needs to be one more or two more episodes, so it wouldn't make sense for the viewers. But I find it very hard to believe that Cersei did not take advantage of killing Dany, the dragon, all 12 of the Unsullied, Grey Worm, and Tyrion, all standing there at the gate of King's Landing.
I think Zach alluded to that earlier when he said that he didn't see why Cersei didn't just take
Take
them
them out.
all out then, because she had all of the harpoons pointed right
Mm-mm.
at him. She had all of the archers there pointed right at him. She had the high ground, which is a tactical advantage. She had every reason and every right to. Motive means
had it not been a TV show, she would have most likely.
right, and that's what you pointed out, was that it's not good for TV.
Yeah,
It's not.
They've done that a lot this season, where shit just doesn't make sense, and there's a ton of holes in the plot armor. But as we said before, they have to wrap all this shit up. So if they'll leave a fucking Starbucks cup in a scene, then they're gonna leave shit like this.
And we're hooked, and we'll just keep devouring it and talking about it, and that's what they want.
I'm gonna keep doing it. All right, so now I'm gonna get into this is the last part of it. The biggest questions I have after episode 4. Okay, so why doesn't Bran use his warging abilities to do something more important than make a lot of really creepy one-liner comments?
His character doesn't make much sense these days, unless it's a huge reveal that he's the Night King or something like that. None of this makes sense.
Yeah, you talked earlier about him using his warging abilities to basically spy or to get intel. He's not doing anything. He's just sitting around being Bran, being a weird guy,
being autistic.
He's like that grandpa in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory that just wakes up because he gets a golden ticket to go to the factory. He's like useless at this point.
Man, that guy pisses me off, though. He sits in bed for 20 years and lets his family suffer and their
Grandpa Joe
poverty stricken, and then he'll get up and like he won't go to work for 20 fucking years, but he'll get up and go to a goddamn candy factory.
Yeah,
Grandpa Joe, you gotta go.
Oh, that's perfect. Grandpa Joe is Bran in this show.
Man. All right, so these last questions I have are open-ended towards you guys. I'm not really going to answer them, but I kind of want to hear your input. And I guess if anyone wants to write in, they can give me their input as well. So, is Jaime the Queen Slayer in these next 2 episodes?
Nope.
Okay. Mountain versus the Hound. Who are you taking?
Draw. I think they kill each other.
Oh, that would make sense. But yeah, I am expecting a good battle for that.
Kill each other like stepbrothers, like knock each other out at the same time kind of thing.
I mean, with sword fighting, you can get mortally wounded but not be
Yeah.
dead. I think
Right.
I think the Hound will probably be mortally wounded, but he'll deliver a fatal strike that will instantly kill the Mountain. So he'll have the satisfaction of knowing that he killed the Mountain, but then he'll succumb to his injury and die.
I think Arya might help the Hound during their fight.
I hope not. I want it to be a one-on-one fight, a fair
I think
fight.
she will.
We'll see what happens. And Arya did make that comment on her ride with the Hound where she doesn't expect to go back to Winterfell, or she doesn't plan to. So is this Arya's last hurrah?
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, if they're going to let her kill the Night King, there has to be big things planned for her. Everyone keeps talking about this prophecy of green eyes is Cersei, and she's going to kill Cersei. I don't know. I don't know what's in store for her.
Everybody talks about the prophecy of the eyes. And what is it? The blue eyes she shut. The green eyes everybody says is Cersei. And the brown eyes everybody says is the phrase.
Mm-hmm.
What if the brown eyes are her own?
Well, they listed the brown eyes first.
She's gonna shut her own eyes.
I mean, she's a faceless man.
Yeah. Like are you saying like symbolically, like she might do something and accidentally get herself killed? Kind of like
I mean, Zach said that they said the brown first. Okay, well, she had to become a faceless man before she could kill the blue eyes and the green eyes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the brown eyes are talking about her, and I think that this whole faceless thing has something to do with why she is saying that she's not planning to go back to Winterfell, and I think it's because she knows that she's on a suicide mission.
That would make sense, and that's why she doesn't give a shit about hooking up with Gendry or doing anything.
She's got bigger things to do. She's not a lady.
I'm sure Gendry just didn't really give her the night that she had hoped for. She should have gotten to bed with Podrick, I guess, but to each his own. Okay. Will Dany become the Mad Queen?
100%.
Okay. And do you believe Tyrion is the? It's very easy when both of you agree. I mean,
we've been saying that for weeks now.
Oh yeah. Tyrion, is he the illegitimate son of the Mad King Aerys?
Probably in the book, but I don't think this show is going to go that far into the rabbit hole. But that is an awesome theory. That
I do like that theory a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like Zach, I don't think they have time to let it all play out, though.
Right. Okay, and then last,
it made more sense when we thought that there was 3 heads to the rider meant the 3 dragon riders that were going to go in. It made more sense then.
But what if instead of 3 dragon riders, what if it's just the 3 Targaryens to save Westeros?
Could be.
Because that whole dragon rider thing died along with Viserion getting shot down.
Yeah. I don't know. It would be a full-blooded Targaryen and 2 half Targaryens. And one of the half Targaryens is a half a man.
Well, technically, aren't they all half Targaryens unless Dany is a product of incest?
Which I'm sure she was.
Probably.
I mean, that's what royals did back in those times to keep the bloodlines pure.
Well, that's one of those big theories that we need to, I guess, check off the board by the end of the show. It's that we have the prince that was promised, Azor Ahai. There's a lot of things that still haven't been tied up that to some people are not a big deal because they don't look too far into these shows like we do. But for a lot of the book readers, a lot of the really big Game of Thrones fans, those are, if the show ends and they don't issue or address those issues, they're gonna fall flat on their face with a lot of these viewers. It's gonna make a lot of people pissed off.
Sucks that doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't matter who they piss off because they've made money and the show's over. So what do they give a shit?
Nah, yeah, it's fair point. As much as I hate to agree with you on that, that's a good point.
That's why I wish, and I don't really care how long we would have had to wait. I would rather have a show based on the last books than a show just left to the whims of the writers.
Yeah, I can agree
Because
with
they're
that.
not the ones that made this shit what it is,
Well, and now that we know that both the showrunners are getting, I guess, a trilogy for Star Wars through Disney. They've signed on it, I guess. If anything, yes, like they've put on a great product, seasons 1 through 6. But if season 7 and 8 is what we can really, judge them off of, I'm not as excited about this Star Wars trilogy anymore.
They make
Because
shitty endings.
yeah, because it's I mean, and I hate throwing the word around because of how much I love Game of Thrones, but this has turned into a giant fan service event.
No, you're right. They're going full on Disney with Game of Thrones too, with all the spin-offs and all that stuff. It's going to get watered down. And one of my favorite expressions is too much birthday cake.
Yeah.
Birthday cake is great. Everybody digs in, but eventually you get to where it's too much and you have a bellyache.
Hmm.
Eventually you get too much Game of Thrones and you get sick to your stomach.
Well said. All right, so my last question for both of you, and the big question everyone's been asking since the beginning of this season: who do you think will win the Game of Thrones?
HBO.
Man, you guys made a good case for Sansa getting it. I said a while back Arya. I doubt it, but that would be pretty cool. But it's definitely I do not think it'll be John or Danny for sure. That's just too easy.
Yeah, I said John to a buddy of mine after the 3rd episode. I mean, in the moment, I was very mad about the Night King, and so I was like, whatever, maybe John's gonna win. Who gives a shit? But I can agree with that. I don't think it really makes sense to have John or Danny win. That's too Luke and Leia Skywalker.
Oh man.
But then again, if they go full Disney, then they might go Luke and Leia Skywalker.
That is
Yeah,
very
that's
true.
very true. And have the big celebratory ending and all that stuff. I either think that it'll be the Star Wars parade,
The throne room.
the award celebration ending, or we'll get the Lord of the Rings, everybody in a bed with pillows, pillow fighting and stuff ending. No, let's see. Gosh, I really like Danny's idea that would lead Gendry to being whenever he was talking about the Baratheon on the throne.
It all comes full circle.
Yeah, it all comes full circle. I really like that theory. Um, I I would almost love to see Gendry and Sansa somehow hook up
I'd
because
be cool with everyone dying.
I'd be cool with everyone dying. Whatever.
They're
I
not
don't
going to
know.
do that.
I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with a good one now because all along I thought the Night King was going to win. So now I don't have a dog in the fight.
He very well might still.
I mean, yeah, it would be like, I don't know, man. You're down and out in September and then you win your last, 23 games or whatever of the regular season to make it to the playoffs.
Bran this whole time has been the Night King, and he's going to warg and fly straight into the chair and then sit on it.
I don't know anymore, man.
Yeah, I don't have a clue either.
Ride.
Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I would love to have you guys on. We're 2 weeks out from the end of the show, and we'll come back on. We'll go full circle and talk about whether we're right or wrong, or what we didn't like, did like. But as for all the listeners out there, where can they go and find your product? Where can they hear you guys talk? I know you guys don't just talk Game of Thrones. You guys are avid baseball fans and various other sports and topics.
Yeah, we're on basically every major podcast platform. We're also on YouTube at Nest Podcast. As the Game of Thrones season has progressed, we've had a Game of Thrones episode on Mondays, and then we do our sports and everything else on Fridays on YouTube, and then they release on iTunes and everywhere else on Saturday. Yeah, we're huge baseball fans. I'm a Cardinals fan. Brandon is a Red Sox fan, but we try to cover the major stories.
Okay.
We are huge MMA fans. Once football starts, we cover that as well. And then we cover any major nerd stuff that we are into. So video games and stuff like that. We both aren't into Endgame, so don't come to us for that.
Yeah, come to me, guys. I'm a big Endgame guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Our Friday night show is it's kind of co-promoting, co-sponsored with Sportszilla. I just want to throw their little shout out in there.
Yeah, they're a Facebook group. It's kind of like a poor man's bar stool. We get on there and talk shit about any other kind of sports happening that you can think of. If anyone's into that, yeah, just Sportszilla on Facebook, and I'm sure you can join.
Yep. And we're on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff at the Nest Podcast.
Well, good deal. But yeah, guys, do you have any final comments? Any other predictions or anything you want to say before this long-awaited 5th episode, which is usually an episode that ends in Eddard Stark being beheaded and all the other crazy shit that's happened thus far?
Yeah, Game of Thrones has been really good about giving us a loaded episode before the season finale. They like to tie things up in the season finale, it seems like, and this time they definitely have to tie up a lot. So I expect a pretty action-packed episode 5.
I expect Dany will either die or something will happen. Cersei will probably die. There's got to be at least 2 or 3 major characters that eat it.
Definitely. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. For any of you that have any comments, concerns, or you have any theories or any predictions that you want to put out there, contact me on Instagram at the @ bearded_Ballesta, or send me an email at thebeardedballesta@gmail.com. But thanks again for listening. Thanks to Brandon and Zach for coming on and talking some Game of Thrones. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.